are starting a new series today, and I think we're going to be in Genesis 37, so you can look that up in your Bibles. We will have the text on the screen too. This series that I want to preach this next 4 weeks has to do with us human beings losing our power. And I want to explain what I mean. And today I want to talk about a little bit about how we lose our power on account of other people. And sometimes we cause other people to lose their power. Sometimes other people cause us to lose ourselves, to lose who we are, our self-esteem, our ego, our happiness, our joy. So it goes both ways. We give and we take. When I was growing up, I think I was the same as any other kid, right? By the way, when you look at the kids, what is the one characteristic that all kids have, little kids, 2, 3, 4 years old? Innocence? That's a good one. I like that. What else? Kids are pretty happy. What else? Energetic. They don't know of any problems. Do you ever see kids do this? What does this mean? Pick me up, right? Hug me. And kids, they do that. Why? How come the rest of us don't do it? You know what I mean? So when you're a little baby, you get born and you come into this world with a big smile on your face. Or in my case, I was crying. My mother says I was crying for 6 months. She couldn't sleep. So, to this day, I'm hearing how I ruined her life for those 6 months. Actually, my mother loved me, even though I was crying. But babies, they come into this life with this inherent built-in trust, and with happiness, and with joy, and with innocence. And then as you grow up, you begin to learn things, right? So as I was growing up, you begin to, when you're 6, 7 years old, you learn to have friends. And maybe you have your best friend in the world that you hang around with. And maybe you go out there to the schoolyard one day and you see that those kids over there are laughing at you. And then all of a sudden you also see that your best friend is with them, together with them, also laughing at you. And then you come home and your mom says, "How's your friend Johnny?" And you say, "I hate Johnny." You don't love him anymore. Well, why do you hate him? Well, because he's really not my friend. Because he was laughing at me. And then as you grow, you learn that life can be pretty cruel and hard. When I was in the 4th grade, they began teaching us English. And we had this nasty teacher. He was a man. He was probably, back then, he was in his full strength. He was probably 40 years old. He was, at least to me, he looked like he was a big, tall, strong guy, And he was teaching us English. And there was probably 40 kids in the class. And I was one of those kids that was happy-go-lucky, always wanting to have fun, always trying to pull something over on somebody, And I remember, one day, I never even realized I was horsing around with my buddy, and our teacher came from behind. We never saw him coming. And all I could feel was this huge paw smacking me on the side of my head from behind. And then he did this, to me, and with his left hand, he slapped my buddy that was sitting next to me. Talking about cruel awakening. You're happy, you're go-lucky, you're doing things, you think everything is cool, you think you can trust everybody, you think people are going to love you, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get smacked on top of your head, and you realize that the world is not a fun place. You realize that the world can be pretty rough, and that not everybody likes you. You realize that not everybody likes you. And as a result, as the time goes by, and you go to high school, and you break up with your first girlfriend and your first boyfriend, you go to college, and you have more experiences, bad experiences, and you get the job, and your boss fires you for no reason, and you get married, and you find your wife in bed with somebody, or you find your husband, doing something wrong with somebody, or betraying you in some kind of a way, and you start experiencing these defeats in your life, and these hurts, and all of these bad things in your life, from people that are supposed to love you and care for you, it does something to us. We lose the power. We lose the power to be happy. We lose the power to enjoy, the power to forgive, the power to tolerate. Depression today is the biggest moneymaker for the American psychiatry. It's depression, because as you go through life and you experience these kinds of events in your life, you become depressed, and you pulled away, and you hide, and you don't want nothing to do with people, and you don't want friends anymore, and you can't trust anybody anymore, and just affects you in a negative way. But let's just say that right here in this room, all of us are well adjusted. Let's say that we are not that way. We're not depressed. We are not antisocial. We're well adjusted. Still, in the back of your mind, deep inside of your gut, you still carry those hurts, and they can date as far back as 40 or 50 or 70 years, depending on how old you are. I remember my father, he was already almost 80 years old, and he would tell me how he used to live with his brother when he was at the age of 9 years old. His brother was much older than him, and how his brother's wife would consistently beat him. Every single day he would get a beating. So here is this old man, forgive me, those of you who are over 70, Jim. You know what I'm saying? Forgive me. Here's this older man in his 70s, and he remembers the hurt that was done to him when he was 9 years old. And he talks about it with the same passion and anger and disgust and despair as if it had happened that same morning. Joseph, I chose him for our study today because he exemplifies, he's the picture of this message that I'm trying to convey this morning. Joseph was a young man. The Bible says he was 17 years old. When you're 17 years old, what does that mean? Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers. He was a young guy. He was a happy guy. He thought that the world was his. He thought that everybody loved him and that everybody cared for him. It says the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Joseph is 17 years old. He goes out there. He sees his brothers. They're doing something wrong. He goes back and he tells his dad. What's going to happen next? Obviously, it's clear, right? Now, Israel, his father, he loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and couldn't speak a kind word to him. They just hated him. He thought that they loved him, but they hated him. Have you ever thought that somebody loved you, but they didn't love you? They hated you? Just hated you? The opposite? Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Are you going to be the boss of us?" That's what they said to him. "Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he said. And then he has another dream, and he told it to his brothers, and he says, "Listen, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." Where did these dreams come from? They came from God, right? But he went and he told those dreams to his brothers and to his fathers. And in verse 10, when he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous, but his father kept the matter in mind. So you have a young guy, 17 years old. He thinks he's on top of the world. He thinks everybody loves him. Why did he think that? I think he thought that because his father loved him more than any of the other kids. And he felt all of that love coming from his father, and he probably felt that everybody else loved him. He didn't realize that his brothers resented him. They didn't like him. One day, his brothers are off somewhere taking care of the sheep, and the father says to Joseph, "Look, I need you to go over there, check on your brothers, see how they are doing, come back and give me a report on how they are doing." And Joseph, 17 years old, he jumps at an opportunity. He's going to have a chance to travel to a far land, to find his brothers, to give them a hug, to talk to them, to see how they are doing, and then go back. He feels important. Father has given him a good task to do. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to hug him. They plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we will see what comes of his dreams." Reuben, the oldest one, he said, "No, you can't. We're not going to kill him." And he tried to protect him, right? Because he was planning, let's put him into this hole, and then later when they get away, I'm going to pull him out and send him back to the father, and he's going to be safe. So now, I just want you to visualize this and feel it. Joseph is out on the fields. You guys have all been out on the plains. The wind is howling. His brothers are in the distance. He's walking. You can feel the grass under his feet, right? And you can see the flowers and the birds and the butterflies, And he's walking to them, and they're waiting. And when he comes over there, real close to them, within an arm's reach, he has a smile on his face. And he's expecting a hug. And instead, he gets a fist in his face. And he falls to the ground. And then they probably knock him around a little bit more, kick him in the ribs, and they drag him over to that hole and dump him in there like a bag of trash. How do you feel at that point? I think every one of us has experienced this on some level. And unfortunately, I think every one of us has probably caused somebody else to experience it on some level too. How do you feel when your world turns upside down and what you thought was the way things were, turns out it's not that way? We want to show you a little clip of a young man who was abused when he was young. Do we have that?
My name's James, and this is my story. We all have stories of hope, love, brokenness, everything. And this is my story of a broken family. I grew up with my mother and father like any other kid, but my mother and father were into drugs and alcohol, like seriously bad. And my mother would leave all the time, leave me alone, going to get drugs all the time. And I'd be at the house by myself with nothing. And my father, well, he was just an alcoholic, plain and simple. And he really has never cared that much about me, never wanted to spend time with me. And I only have faint memories of when I was just a little child, a little kid, of when he was around. We used to do things. And I remember I used to be abused and hurt and looked down upon. And I'd be cursed at by my father. And I'd watch my father beat my mother all the time. It was horrible things. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. That there's tons of other hearts and other kids that go through the same situations with their families all the time. And I'm one of those kind of people, one of those kids that grew up in one of those homes where there's lots of hurt and lots of pain and lots of thoughts where you're alone and really you don't know what to do. And I remember one night I ran away to my grandmother's house, and a lot of things were on my mind. And all it took was one of my friends to invite me to church one time. And when I went to church that night, for the first time in my life, I felt something I've never felt before. Something you can't really explain. And well, ever since that night that I just accepted God into my life, accepted Jesus and our Father's love into my life, everything has been different. And there's nothing that can even compare to that. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that hope and that forgiveness that I have from our God and our Father. Nothing even compares to His love, His grace that He has upon us. And He has shown me that I need to have forgiveness towards my mother and my father and my parents. That's what we're supposed to do, right? That's what it says, right? And through Him, just as He has loved us and forgave us, I have been given the strength to be able to say to my parents that I still love them with all my heart, that I love them no matter what they have done to me, that I will show them forgiveness. And I pray for their lives. I pray for their salvation every day of my life. And I believe it. I believe God someday will bring them to their knees and that they will find Him. Even if it's on their deathbed, I will believe it till the very day that it happens. That's my story. What's yours?
So, the first part of this sermon, of this message, was about the fact that we all experience these kinds of devastating and defeating events in our life. We all do. And the second part of this message that I want to present here today is to help us to deal with these kinds of situations in our lives. Everybody has been down this road. Everybody. A little kid that learns that the world is cruel. A parent who thinks that they have a wonderful relationship with their teenager only to find out that they have been lied to constantly. A husband betrayed, a wife abused. Everybody has a story. Young couple. In one of my churches, I had a lady came up to me one time, and we talked. And she says we were newly married, maybe 3 months into the marriage. And my husband came home one day real angry, and we got into the argument. And that was the first time that he hit me. And she said, my life just crumbled when I realized what he'd done to me. So we see this all the time. My brother, one year, when we were in Michigan, I was at Andrews University, he brings a dog home. A German Shepherd, black, from the tip of his nose to the end of his tail. All black. Maybe that dog should have been 130, 140 pounds, and maybe he was 40. And he got it at this junkyard where the dog was abused. So animals experience this. A little puppy, he will run everywhere and jump on everybody and lick everybody to death until it gets smacked the first time and the second time. And then if he has the abusive owner, you will end up with an animal like this one, doesn't want anything to do with people, just runs away. And if you try to go over there and pet it, the dog just does this and just backs away from you and doesn't know you. Doesn't know you, but he's expecting to be hurt some more. So we all experience this. In our class this morning, Maria had a story that she shared about her own experience. And I asked her to share that here today with you. Are you ready? Can you do it? Come on up. Maria and Philip have been coming to our church now for how long, Philip? 5 months. 5 months. Praise the Lord. You can stand right here. Right there? Okay. Share with us the story that you shared with us this morning in the class. I know it's hard, but just imagine this is a Sabbath school class. And yeah, keep it close.
stop thinking rationally. And one day she called me. I can't remember how the conversation went, but she said something about my parents, and my parents to me they're sacred. And when she said put that about my parents, I totally lost it. I had no reason left in my brain to think rationally, and I was crying, and it was raining really hard, just like it was raining yesterday. It was raining really hard, and I took my little 7-month-old baby girl, I put all her diapers in her bag, I packed up all her bottles. Philip was working, he used to do interior painting. And in my mind, I was going to go drop off the baby to him, and he was going to take her, and I was going to go to see this woman. I was knocking at her door. In my brain, I'm thinking all this. Then I was going to take her head up, bang her against the floor, and when I saw blood coming out, I was going to call the police, and I said, yes, this woman did, that was my plan. And in my mind, I was like, it seemed like to reason that Philip would say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take the baby while you do that. And I mean, think about it, you know? And it was such a crisis in my life. It just so happened that when I was on my way down, I was physically going to do this. I was not, I got in my car with my little girl in the back seat with all my goodies to give to Philip to watch her. And it just so happened that he was coming home and he saw me on the road. I was driving on the wrong side of the road, or not over there. And he said, look at this crazy woman. So I pulled over and he said, what's wrong with you? So I was crying. I told him what happened. Just take the baby. I'm going to go and I'm going to do this and this. He said, you're crazy. We're coming home. And I said, I'm not coming home. You can't stop me. I'm doing this. Take the baby. And anyway, after back and forth, he's standing outside in the rain, you know, trying to tell me you can't do this. You know, you're not thinking straight. Finally, after convinced me, we went back home, and long story short, it was such a, I had these feelings of hatred and resentment, and you couldn't talk to me about her because all these, how you can say it, all these terrible feelings conjure up. I felt it coming from my feet all the way up. Like, I really didn't like this woman. It was terrible. Anyway, time passed. We were living in Bermuda. It was Bermuda, and we moved to the States. And I remember, I used to pray for 2 years. I used to get on my knees. I used to cry. I said, Lord, please. I know she's unlovable. Nobody in the world has the power, not even you, to help me love this woman because she's so unlovable. But help me get to the point. I mean, this is my prayer. I mean, I say, help me get to the point that when I see her, or when somebody mentions her name, okay, I can cope with that because it was severe, the feelings I had. Anyway, after 2 years of that prayer, the Lord must have said, okay, I'm going to help you get over this. And I thought I did. So we go back to Bermuda. We moved back to Bermuda, and all the children, all my husband's siblings are in Bermuda. It's Christmas time, and I want to have a big Christmas dinner, have his family over, but I don't want to have her over. But then I said, it's like the Lord says, well, you have to invite her. And I said, I'm not inviting that woman to my house. He's crazy. So it's like, it was a real struggle. Then I said, somebody has to put forth the olive branch. And I prayed about it. I said, Lord, I don't think I can do this. So I prayed about it, and I forced myself. I literally, as my husband, I literally had to force myself to pick up the phone and call her. And she answered the phone, and I said, we're having a Christmas dinner. Would you like to come? And her response to me was, well, I'm coming over. If I feel any attention, I'm just leaving. I said, okay. But anyway, she came. Long story short, for me to find healing, because she was, in order for you to be able to forgive and forget, we talked about that a lot, is that there has to be some kind of healing going on. But if there's no healing going on, somewhere, somebody has to, as a Christian, you have to put your best foot forward, even though you have to force yourself to do the right thing. And it wasn't until I forced myself to do the right thing, which was to call her and to try to be peaceful, even though it was against everything I felt inside. When she did come, I felt all that bad feeling, all the horrible things that happened, just left.
Dissipate. Thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable and coming up and sharing that with us. This is the real story. Somebody who has experienced this, and I know each one of us has been there and done this, and only with the help of God can we overcome these kinds of situations in our lives. Only God can give you the peace and comfort, and the ability to deal with defeats that you have been dealt in your life. I just want to go real quick through a few examples in the Bible, and this is going to take a few minutes, and then we'll be done with our message here. Bible gives us examples of people who were betrayed. One of the people that came to my mind was Samson. Samson was betrayed both by his own people. He was betrayed by the woman that he loved. Remember? All of those things. But when we look at his story, when we look at the Bible story of Samson, we find out that he could not be defeated by anybody. Not by the whole nation of Philistine. Why? Because he was in God's plan. God had a plan for him. And regardless of what happens in your life, regardless of who hurt you, regardless of the defeat that you have experienced, if you have the knowledge that you are in God's plan, that trumps everything else, all the other bad feelings, just trumps it, neutralizes it. When I think about David, who was betrayed and attacked by his own son, you remember that? He was on the run for many years because his son wanted to have the kingdom. How bad can it get than to be betrayed and physically attacked by your own child? And yet David could not be attacked by anybody, could not be destroyed by anybody. Why? Because he was in God's plans. God had a plan for him. When I think about the Apostle Paul, who was betrayed by his colleagues, by his Jewish friends, rabbis, who went after him to kill him and to put him in jail, and who suffered so much in his life. And he could not be defeated. Why? Because he was in God's plans. Even when he was in jail, even when he couldn't do anything, he was in God's plans. God had a plan for him. God has a plan for you. Jesus is our best example. He's betrayed by everybody. He's betrayed not just by the human race, but he's betrayed by the 12 apostles who are his inner circle, his disciples, people that he shares his food with, people that they sleep together every night in the same spot. These are the closest friends. He's betrayed by them. A Roman army came after him to destroy him, to kill him. Satan came after Jesus with all of the armies of the evil one. Who knows how many billions of evil angels came after Jesus to destroy him. They couldn't do a thing to him. You know why? Because he was in God's plans. If you are going through life, and you don't realize, you're not conscious of the fact that God has a plan for you, then you are going to be hurt by all kinds of things in life. You're going to be hurt by circumstances, you're going to be hurt by people, you're going to be hurt by all kinds of things. All the armies of the Philistines couldn't stop Samson. Nobody could stop David. Nobody could stop Joseph. His brothers betrayed him. His family betrayed him. His friends put him in jail. Nobody could stop him. Nobody could defeat him because God had a plan for him. And Joseph, when everything was said and done, he became almost the king of Egypt. And his brothers and family came and bowed down to him. Why? Because that was in God's plan. So no matter what anybody has done to you, in your life, God has a plan for you. When you feel the weakest, when you feel the most vulnerable, when you feel the most defeated, then read 2 Corinthians 12:19, and I'm going to finish with this today. And I'm reading out of King James because I like that verse in that particular version. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee. When he was feeling the most vulnerable, when Paul was feeling like, my Jewish nationals have abandoned me, Christian church has abandoned me, and now my health is going, I'm losing even my health. God has abandoned me. I don't have anything left. When he had nothing left, that's when God says to him, my grace is sufficient for thee. For my strength is made perfect in weakness. When you're the weakest, that's when God gives you the most strength. When you're the most hurt, that's when God gives you the most comfort. When you're at the lowest point in your life is when you have to realize that God has a plan for you and that you're in his plan. And then you can overcome anything else that's coming your way. And that's why Paul responded, most gladly therefore will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. If I could leave anything with you this morning, I would say, I strongly believe that God has a plan for me, for this church, for you, for every single one of you. There is a reason, there is a purpose for living. And when you realize that, it neutralizes all kinds of bad stuff that happens in our life. You know, in this room we have people right now who are going through cancer. We have people who are going through separation, divorce. We have people who are having troubles with their kids. We have people, obviously so many, who are suffering because of a loss of a job, income. We have people who have been hurt and abused. Right here in this room. And the only answer is to connect to Jesus and to know that he has a plan for you. God bless you as you contemplate this, and God bless you as you call on the name of Jesus so that he can show you what his plan is for you. Amen.